Ja, hallo, ich bin heute Gastmoderatorin für die Sendung Auf der Spur unserer Geschichte und habe die Ehre, den Entdecker des Grabes von Alexander des Großen, Baghdad Djillali, bei mir zu haben und werde das Interview auf Französisch führen, was auch anschließend übersetzt werden wird. Hallo, Baghdad Djillali.
Bonjour.
You have discovered the tomb of Alexander the Great. Tell us a little bit about this.
It is true. I have made a very important discovery in the Kingdom of Jordan in 2010, and in January 2011 I have officially informed the King of Jordan, His Royal Highness Abdallah, about this discovery. I think that the discovery of this tomb is very important. It is the grave of Alexander III of Macedonia. Of that I am sure, considering all the objects in the mausoleum, about which I will not go into detail, because that would take too long. The tomb is so extraordinary because of the gigantic size of the treasure, and it also contained the sarcophagus of Alexander and a mausoleum of Ptolemy I Soter. I believe that the mausoleum of Ptolemy holds the entrance to the shrines of the whole Ptolemy line of descendants. I cannot confirm this, but I strongly believe that the shrine of Cleopatra is also located inside the mausoleum, as great historians, such as Henry Schliemann, also liked to believe.
So it is not only Alexander who is buried there?
It is not only Alexander. I counted 18 dignitaries on the first level. I entered 2 levels. On the first level there are 12 rooms. It is a kind of duplex in which there are niches that contain the sarcophagi of different kings. Inside, on my journey of discovery, I beheld what was, most probably, the tomb of Alexander. But how could I claim that it is Alexander the Great? The sarcophagus and all statues inside are almost all Hellenistic. For example, there is a caryatid of 2 meters 80 high, entirely in gold, a statue of a Discobolus, entirely in gold, and this famous sarcophagus. Inside Alexander's mausoleum is a statue of Isis, a life-sized golden stag, and on the right, before entering the niche, there is a snake, a Gethardamon called by the Greeks, carved into the wall, all of which made me sure that it is the tomb of Alexander the Great. There is also a library with engraved copper plates, several hundreds of kilograms, with a profile of the horned Alexander on the covers, which made it obvious to me that this has to be the tomb of Alexander. It is stunningly beautiful. The entire walls are covered with golden plates decorated with hunting scenes, moons, and so on. I believe all in this cave is from Alexander the Great. And why do I believe that? Because I have done a lot of research about him in Alexandria.
Cette grotte est antérieure à Alexandre.
Okay.
En effet, pourquoi? Parce que bon, j'ai fait beaucoup de recherches à Alexandrie.
Oui. Vous avez mis beaucoup de temps pour...
Did it take you a long time to find him?
J'ai commencé exactement en 97.
About 15 years. I started out, to be precise, in 1997. I have spent a lot of time on mapping. I am a specialist of ancient cartography, and my whole work is based on cartography. When I wanted to visit the site with my own findings, I ended up in Alexandria. This was already decades ago. When I drew conclusions from my research, I knew there is nothing. I had followed the work of historians who believed that Alexander was buried under the Mosque of Daniel. I noticed when visiting the grave of his father, Philip of Macedonia in Greece, that he was buried in the mountains. There are not many mountains in Egypt, and because Alexandria is quite flat, I went to Siwa and continued my investigation, which took me to the priests from Salomon. I traveled up to Tunisia and crossed the whole Siwa area. I noticed immediately thousands of holes of treasure hunters. a paradise for grave robbers. It was no question for the generals, his friends since Alexander's childhood, to believe that he was buried 750 kilometers away from Alexandria. I was immediately convinced, because of my mapping, that he had to be buried somewhere near Amman. I continued my research in Damascus, performed all my work in private libraries, such as the library in Düsseldorf. I knew that German archaeologists are very much specialized in Middle Eastern archaeology. I started to do research in libraries, especially in the National Library of Paris, and studied Alexander the Great, but my research was based on looking for the Ark of the Covenant. I was looking for the Ark, the famous Ark that is mentioned in the Bible and other religions.
Mais moi, ma recherche était basée sur l'Arche de l'Alliance. Moi, je cherchais le coffre, ce fameux coffre qui est parlé dans la Bible, dans plusieurs religions, en particulier dans les religions.
Alors la découverte de la tombe, elle était hasard en fait.
So the discovery of the tomb was rather a coincidence. You discovered the tomb of Alexander the Great because of your search for the Ark of the Covenant.
Indeed, I did find Alexander, but I had been looking for the Ark of the Covenant, while at the same time Alexander was connected to it. So I started to look for Alexander as well, although at first he had not been of interest to me. With the help of cartography, I then searched for Alexander the Great. There are certain maps which are misinterpreted by archaeologists, and using these maps, I found him near Amman. Amman is 3,000 years old. It used to be called Rabbath Ammon and was the capital of the Decapolis. This has been ignored by archaeologists. One of the cities of the Decapolis, Gerasa, was founded by veterans of Alexander the Great. The last emperor who visited the grave of Alexander was Emperor Caracalla, who had a medallion stamped in honor of Alexander of Macedonia, founder of Gerasa. And thus I began my research between Damascus and Amman, where the Temple of Hercules and many other temples stand. Amman is also called the Rome of the Middle East, and it is beautiful. My research started in Babylon, Damascus, where the catafalque disappeared without a trace.
J'ai commencé à Babylone, Damas, le char funéraire disparaît complètement. Et c'est là que j'ai commencé mes...
Vous avez une énorme connaissance de l'histoire.
You have an enormous knowledge of history.
C'est-à-dire que c'est pas l'archéologie.
This is my hobby, archaeology and enchanted stories. But it is very hard to find kings. There are kings who have never been found yet. And here there are 18.
You have counted 18 kings?
I have counted 80 niches. Alexander's mausoleum is surrounded by niches, as it is described by some historians.
At the press conference you held in 2013, you also speak of the trees from Babylon. They are so beautiful.
Yes, indeed. The main part of the treasure had been sent from Damascus and had been guarded by the government of Damascus. Alexander went back to India, but the gold was kept in a cave, and that is why I believe that Ptolemy I, who took over the kingdom of Egypt, already knew that the true tomb of Alexander was to be in this cave.
Dans cette grotte. En fait, qu'il y a eu une bataille entre Perdiccas et Ptolémée,
there was a battle between Perdiccas and Ptolemy. Perdiccas wanted Alexander to be buried in Macedonia because Aristande, Alexander's soothsayer, had foretold that he, who kept the remains of Alexander in his country, also would be the one to inherit his kingdom and would be unassailable. He would become Alexander's heir and would take over everything.
Alexandrie n'était pas construite. Ptolémée détourne le convoi. Il détourne le convoi funéraire. Et à partir de Damas, il disparaît complètement.
Since Alexandria wasn't built yet, Ptolemy turns around the convoy carrying the remains, and from Damascus the catafalque disappears completely. And from there I began my research in Damascus, and I made a first small step. This step brought me to Gerasa. I studied Amman, and when you look at an old map, there were at this time 3 large cities: Jerusalem, Memphis, and Amman. Rabbath Amman was rebuilt by the son of Ptolemy I, Philadelphus, and renamed Philadelphia, which I found quite remarkable. It gave a whispering in my ear. The second criterion, the 10 cities of the Decapolis. Most cities of the Decapolis, of which Damascus was the most important, were founded by Alexander's veterans, and it was also called the City of Honor. There is a peculiarity about the city of the Decapolis. The city of Pella, the birthplace of Alexander of Macedonia, located in Jordan, has the Arabian name Qais. So I have been there too. This city was built in his honor and presented to him, and so it came to my mind that the catafalque was produced there, since the city of Pella was known to hold the largest manufacturers of Persian wheels. It was all constructed there. From Damascus I went to Pella. Between these 2 cities there are very wide roads, up to 5 meters wide, to transport big items, and it was moved from town to town. The catafalque of Alexander crossed several cities, and I believe that these cities were the Decapolis. It crossed Gadara, Kanatha, Hippos before it arrived in Gerasa. When they arrived there, they brought it to the temple of Zeus, because there is a temple of Zeus, and this was just used as a kind of interim storage facility.
How comes that no one discovered him earlier?
One had to search in the right place, and I searched in the right place. I studied all the maps very precisely, and there are antique maps that show you almost the exact location of the grave. In Damascus I found an old map which can be viewed on the internet.
Are these maps secret?
No. In the meantime, they are even available for consult on the internet.
This is unbelievable, right?
Yes, that's incredible indeed. Archaeologists have focused too much on Alexandria, but nobody actually believed it to be there. There are so many buildings, and they would have found it only by accident. One should not forget that there were 2 tsunamis in Alexandria who have destroyed the pharos, and they accounted for 50,000 deaths. According to my opinion, Alexander never had been buried there. A second thing is, when the nominated bishop of Alexandria arrived, he asked the Alexandrians to show him where to find the grave of Alexander, but no one knew where it was. That could be the same as if someone was to ask about the Arch of Triumph in Paris and nobody knew where to find it. So I knew he couldn't be there. Septimius Severus had the grave of Alexander sealed with all books from all the temples. The saying goes that there were even books of magic. Anyway, they brought together all the books and included them in the grave, which then was sealed in a way that it could no longer be entered or seen. As I see it, the grave is not in Alexandria, as they sealed it so that nobody could ever enter the grave anymore. It has to be located elsewhere.
Is it known what is written in the books on the copper plates?
When you enter the tomb, you will find a library of approximately 100 square meters with many books with golden plates. It's incredible. I have contacted several professors. I have filmed and made a lot of pictures there.
Did you encounter a lot of problems during your research?
Yes, I encountered a lot of problems, since this part of the world is very unsteady and dangerous. Jordan still is stable and well managed by the king. It is a beautiful kingdom. I had a lot of language problems, and in Jordan, everyone is searching for gold. There are many treasure hunters. In this part of the world, it's a kind of national sport. Everyone is searching for treasures and tombs of kings, so there are many grave robbers. Therefore, I was very relieved and could breathe freely again once I had informed the King of Jordan. One must not forget, this is world heritage and it is not mine. I have discovered it and I am aware that it is a legacy for humanity.
This discovery may change the world a bit.
They sure can change the world. Alexander is also mentioned in the Quran, where he is referred to as a prophet, as several historians confirm. But there are also different views on this subject. Is it or isn't it Alexander in the Quran? As opinions differ, I don't want to commit to any point of view.
C'est extraordinaire pour ce royaume.
Ça peut changer aussi un peu le monde.
Ça peut changer le monde. C'est-à-dire que faut pas oublier qu'Alexandre il est cité quand même dans le Coran.
Yes, for sure he existed. He is there. What would be great for this part of the world, and this is my dream, would be to reopen the tomb and to have it examined by international scientists. That is my wish.
But it is certain that he existed.
I found him, and now it is the task of scientists and great archaeologists to explore the grave. And believe me, this is a job that will take decades. And what is very interesting as well, and is also a very big mystery, how can it be that they all are in there?
Et croyez-moi, il y en aura pour plusieurs dizaines d'années. Et ce qui est très intéressant, c'est que il y a une grande énigme. Comment se fait-il que tout le monde se trouve à l'intérieur? C'est-à-dire que
this is truly the valley of the kings.
Ouais, c'est comme la vallée des rois. Et je pense
This is truly the valley of the kings. Yes, the Valley of the Kings. I believe that even more graves are located around the mausoleum. There is a fort covering an area of 2 hectares right opposite the mausoleum. I think it housed the guardians of the tomb. The Greeks, the veterans of Alexander, were shielding it.
D'ailleurs, j'avais, dans ma conférence du 25 juillet 2013, j'avais dit qu'il y avait une société secrète. Mais c'était à l'époque de Ptolémée.
At the press conference on June 25, 2013, I mentioned at the time of Ptolemy there was the secret society of guardians. From the 3rd century BC onwards, Alexander had disappeared, and nobody knows where he had gone. And then there were the Christians, Jesus and so on. And everything heathen was not allowed. All heathenish statues were destroyed. When Napoleon arrived in Alexandria, all he found was a village several meters below ground, completely in ruins. Alexandria was completely destroyed. There were just ruins everywhere. Alexandria was nowhere to be found but in ruins underground.
Je pense que Alexandre était déjà là. Il était déjà au temps de Ptolémée, son général. Voilà.
I believe that in those days, Alexander already had been put in his place by General Ptolemy, and that his son Philadelphus, at the command of his father, had moved him in there. Ptolemy I Soter died at the age of 84, a very distinguished age at that time. He had a lot of time to reflect on the many things the oracles had said, and there were many oracles. Oracles predicted many things, and I believe they predicted that Alexander is not buried in Alexandria. The Alexander in the tomb carries the breastplate, his breastplate Caligula. Alexander lies under a transparent alabaster disc, and you can see that he is wearing his breastplate. The one that lies in Alexandria is not the real Alexander. His ring, his breastplate. Most of the emperors worshipped him. They were fans of Alexander and, above all, Caracalla the last one. Therefore, I'm coming back to the heritage of mankind. The tomb must be reopened by all means.
I'm sure that you will succeed because so far everything is falling into place.
Et je patiente depuis 6 ans quand même. Ça fait quand même 6 ans que j'attends.
I've been waiting for almost 6 years already. I have patience. In the Middle East, there are major problems all around Jordan.
Tout est la Syrie.
J'espère que le monde va être ouvert un jour pour comprendre que ça appartient au monde.
Exactement. Et ce qui serait formidable, c'est que s'ils l'ouvrent et ils ouvrent le tombeau.
This would be fantastic. When they reopen the mausoleum, all the other Arab countries should support the Kingdom of Jordan in protecting this unique heritage. It is unique. It is, after all, the tomb of Alexander the Great. So, not just anybody's. He caused a lot of change in the world. This mausoleum must be protected by all means. And I'm sure that the king will succeed to do so if the other Arabian countries offer support and assistance to the Kingdom of Jordan. They love art and history indeed.
Did you declare this discovery?
Of course I have declared this discovery. I had a lot of help. I am a member of the Federation of Prospectors, and a director supported me a lot with the declaration. We have declared through my law firm, TRIA, which has written to UNESCO to inform them about the announcement of the tomb's discovery. He also met with Mrs. Veronique Doge, who is responsible for Arabian affairs at UNESCO. The director of the prospectors within the Europe Federation has helped me a lot and has assisted me since I did not know what to do. I knew I had to report it to UNESCO in a legal way through lawyers. I have addressed all the institutions, the Arab League. I addressed the European Union, the French President, the Minister of Culture in France.
J'ai écrit à toutes les institutions, la Ligue arabe, j'ai écrit à l'Union européenne, j'ai écrit au président de la République française. J'écris au ministère de la Culture française.
Ouais, j'ai vu tous les papiers.
J'écris plus d'une vingtaine.
I wrote more than 20 letters to all kinds of international institutions and to national institutions in France, which has strengthened me.
I thank you very much for this interview and I hope you will be successful. Thank you.
Ok, merci beaucoup, madame. Merci. Je vous en prie.